Thieves will steal our cars, our valuables, just about anything they can get their hands on. To cut down on crime and antisocial behaviour, police and other agencies are using new technology and tactics where the bad guys are actually getting caught in the act.
I can see the man actually commit the robbery. Lovely, thank you very much.
Local councils, shops and businesses are laying some traps of their own.
Why should we feel frightened for the rest of our lives?
And the general public too can help unsuspecting crooks get their comeuppance.
No way are you getting away.
We did it for everyone else as well that she might be stealing from.
We will name and shame you.
So, anyone who's up to no good had better think twice. They might just get caught red-handed. Today, a shopkeeper bravely tries to lock in a knife-wielding robber.
He was flustered, very panicky, and he's smashing away at the glass.
Also today, a cruel, illegal attack on protected birds of prey.
What has been happening to birds of prey up here is despicable.
The RSPB investigators on a mission to save them. And a bank hold-up that's like a scene from a film. But the hooded raider makes a schoolboy error and his mum finds him out. A winter's morning in St Neots in Cambridgeshire. It's the end of the rush hour and stores are opening up. After several small thefts, a CCTV camera system has been installed in this family-run jewellery shop. Today, the owner's son Jack is working alone, taking the opportunity before customers come in to repair a gold ring. But just then, the door opens. Jack looks up to see a man stepping the wrong side of the counter. The man reaches into his pocket for something. The CCTV next shows Jack going into the shop with the masked figure following closely behind him. It's now clear what the man was reaching for, a huge knife. This customer is an armed robber.
I don't have my children working in the family business in a shop to risk their lives.
The young jeweller is being held at knife point, a terrifying situation, but Jack's coolly planning how to turn the tables on his attacker.
It was the most frightening moment of my life, seeing my brother chasing a man with a knife.
The jewellery shop was set up by Paul Goldstraw in 1981.
I started the business as a young 21-year-old and hoped one day that my family might be involved in the business, and obviously that has happened.
Jack and Connie, two of Paul's children, joined the family firm 7 years ago.
My role in the jewellers is to serve the customers, to make sure that my dad and my brother are doing their jobs properly.
I'm acting manager when my sister isn't here. We kind of work in partnership almost. So I do as I'm told. I make the tea, empty the bins, but then also sell some jewellery and repair it.
Their father's work is well known in the area.
He's done some commission work for some quite high profile people and companies, brooches for royalty. He also has done the chain of office for the mayor.
And son Jack has also made a name for himself.
When I was 15, I was fortunate enough to win a scholarship with BMW Motorsport, so I was a racing driver. That was something I'll never ever forget.
Helping to run the shop may not seem as adrenaline-fuelled as driving powerful cars around the track, but even in this trade, there can be moments that get the pulse racing.
We've had sleight of hand, theft, and you kind of try and sharpen up your act when you do get duped. It's only happened a couple of times, but nevertheless, this is a whole new ball game. I mean, this is scary.
Back to that winter's morning, just before the armed robber walks in. Their father is on a day off, so Connie and Jack are opening up the shop.
We've set up the shop, Jack and I together. I had gone over to the shop behind the Muse, which is where we work, to exchange some flowers that I'd received because it was my birthday.
While she's nipped out to change her flowers, I'm sitting behind my bench and I'm just doing a couple of minor repairs.
The man slips in. He's wearing a scarf wrapped around his face.
I look up and I see what can only be described as a threat.
Then, as he approaches Jack, the man takes out the knife.
He makes it quite clear that he's not here for a chat, as he's got a massive knife with a big long blade.
The robber orders Jack to move to the front. He's after one particular watch that's worth £10,000.
My mind is going a million miles an hour trying to think, how can I, one, get myself out of this situation, and two, get him caught. I thought, can I turn around and punch him hard enough for him to fall on the floor? And then I thought, well, that's crazy. I've already at this point tried to go for the panic alarm once, and he was to flick his knife at my hand, so I thought, I can't push my luck too much. You know, there's only so many chances I'm going to get. So I ruled that one out, and then I thought, well, I'm just passenger now. He is in control. I'm going to just have to do as he says.
Jack does do what the man says, but only for a few seconds. Because as he's unlocking the window to let the robber get access to the watch, Jack gets an idea.
As I open the window, it becomes a barrier between me and the knife. There's no way that that knife is going to come through the glass in the amount of time I've decided to vacate the shop and hold him in.
As the robber takes the watch, Jack takes a key out of his pocket and seizes his opportunity.
I've opened the door and I've rushed out.
He plans to lock the thief in the shop, but there's a problem. It's the wrong key.
I come across some keys, but they're for the window, they're not actually for the door, which leaves me in quite a sticky situation. So I hold the door shut, and at this point, a gentleman who was a passerby, to all his credit, I mean, he didn't have to, but he came to my rescue. He came to my rescue and he helped hold the door shut with me.
It's now the robber's turn to be desperate to escape. He gives up just trying to tug the door open. Now he gets a hammer out of his bag.
He was flustered, very panicky, and he's smashing away at the glass, gone back to the knife.
Now with the knife, he stabs at Jack's hand, forcing him to let go of the handle.
He managed to catch me. There was no real blood was drawn, but he caught me on the finger, and now, when you're in the heat of the moment, and that, for all I knew, could have been an archery. So I let go. The gentleman was helping me. We kind of both took a step back.
The armed robber makes a run for it.
I don't know what came over me. I really don't. But I led chase.
By now, Connie is returning to the shop.
As I've come back, I see my brother chasing a man with a knife. So I called out to my brother to ask him to stop. When I realised that he wasn't going to stop, I ran back to the shop, realising that he might have left it open, and called the police.
Later, the armed thief is getting away from Jack.
I wish I wasn't flat-footed, because I might have been a little bit quicker in catching him.
But back at the shop, the robber has left a clue. Although Jack's manoeuvre to lock the man in had failed, it did enough to panic him into a big mistake. He dropped some vital evidence for the police.
Next to a covert operation, but not one to protect property this time, one to try and save a species. Many of Britain's birds of prey are currently struggling for survival, and when a protected species is actually targeted, the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds, the RSPB, will take action.
The Peak District, a conservation area and haven for wildlife, or at least it should be. This video camera has been set up deep in the woods by the RSPB. The camera's aimed at a wire cage that's been built for a sinister purpose. Inside it, there is a white pigeon. It looks like some kind of aviary, but in actual fact, it's a deadly trap.
To place a white pigeon in a trap like that means one thing: it's set to lure in birds of prey. Those birds of prey will get themselves caught in the trap and then they'll be killed.
There has been a steep decline in the number of birds of prey in this area.
What has been happening to birds of prey up here is despicable. The RSPB is outraged about this. Many people are outraged about this.
This isn't an isolated problem. These protected birds are being illegally and cruelly targeted across the UK. The RSPB are now using cameras and other means to set traps of their own to catch the people responsible. The Peak District was the first area in the UK to be designated as a national park. A beautiful wilderness that gets an estimated 10 million visitors a year. This is the Upper Derwent Valley, towards the north of the park, where the landscape is made up of heather moorland, forests and waterways. In the past, bird watchers, such as senior investigator Mark Thomas, have come here to see aerial displays by the birds of prey.
People would travel from vast distances to come here because it was the place. It was the place to stand on a March day when goshawks were displaying and peregrines would fly over, providing the public great wildlife encounters.
But sadly these days, you would be very lucky to spot a bird like a goshawk.
The population here has decreased from 6 pairs to 0 breeding pairs, and nothing has changed. The habitat's the same, the prey availability is the same. Goshawks should be thriving in habitats like this.
Goshawks are protected by the law, and yet up here they are being brought to the brink of extinction, and the RSPB say the culprits are a few rogue gamekeepers.
Gamekeepers are killing goshawks or committing crimes against goshawks because they believe they're impacting on numbers of grouse that are reared.
Part of a gamekeeper's job is to rear birds like grouse and pheasants for the shooting season. The more birds there are, the more successful the shoot. Certain gamekeepers, it seems, take their duties to the extreme. They don't like the threat from wild predators to their stock, so see birds of prey as an enemy.
It's not all gamekeepers, not by any stretch of the imagination, but sadly it's ingrained in the belief that birds of prey need to be killed.
The RSPB want to stop the killing, but they can't patrol hundreds of square miles of the British countryside. So they've had to come up with new covert methods to get the proof they need to stop the offenders. The first thing they do is send an investigator to the area where birds of prey numbers have fallen.
We put a field worker on the ground and he just wandered around these woodlands and he was looking for cage traps. Now they're lawful, but we were looking for misuse of them.
Cage traps are allowed by law if used properly. They're normally designed to catch members of the crow family who can attack other nesting birds. They work a bit like a giant lobster pot. Birds can get in but can't get out again.
We came across a large cage trap and in there was a gleaming white pigeon, and that's Christmas dinner for a bird of prey. A bird of prey would be really lured in to eat the pigeon.
It's illegal to use a pigeon as bait in this way, and the position of the trap like this raises suspicion.
The trap was set just on the fringe of where the woodland and the moorland join, which is a classic hunting line for birds of prey, particularly things like goshawks that will stay low to the ground and hunt along the woodland edge.
The next stage of the investigation is to set up a camera to find out who has set this suspicious trap. And they don't have to wait long. The very next day, a man walks into frame. He's carrying a rifle and checks to see if he's caught anything. This time, he hasn't, and with a frown of disappointment, he heads off. The clip only lasts for a few seconds, but is crucial evidence. The footage confirms that the man responsible is the local gamekeeper.
So at that point we'd got the evidence, we knew who was checking the trap, we knew it was the gamekeeper, and really we knew the gamekeeper checking a trap baited like this is to catch and kill birds of prey.
Mark sets up another camera to gather more evidence.
Just a matter of days later, the cameras captured a man coming to check it again, except this time he had a full-face balaclava.
He's wearing the balaclava to mask who he is, but he releases the white pigeon, oblivious to the fact that it's the bird that could give him away.
What he didn't know is we'd been in there and we'd marked the pigeon in a unique way, which meant we could identify that bird at a later stage. He then disarms the trap, and that's all done on a Saturday when this place is full of walkers. So he clearly wanted to make the trap look as though it wasn't in use.
Mark takes all the evidence to the police, who pay the gamekeeper a visit.
It was an evening search, and thankfully the pigeon that he'd released had then gone back to the dovecot on his land. And when we searched the dovecot with the police, we found the same pigeon that had been in the trap, now in the dovecot. It got unique markings on its wings, and it tied this person with this trap to catch birds of prey with.
The guilty gamekeeper is given a 100-hour community order and has to pay £10,000 costs. He appeals unsuccessfully and ends up paying £17,000. He also loses his job.
The result was an extremely good result. Without these cameras and the use of camera technology, we'd have never got this evidence. Cameras are fantastic for this type of investigation.
Later, the cameras are put to work again in another part of the countryside. This time, it's buzzards that are being caught in a trap. A gamekeeper picks up a club and enters the cage, and as we'll see, the RSPB are outraged by what happens next. Also coming up, what happens next at the jewellers in St Neots, where an armed robber is on the run, closely followed by Jack.
My mind was racing as to what happened to my brother.
And a bank hold-up. But hold on, is that gun for real? The young robber who terrorised the bank staff but couldn't fool his own mother. But first, some poached eggs. Or rather, an attempt to poach some eggs. We're in Baildon, West Yorkshire. The owner of this property, Ian, decided to review the footage from his CCTVs in the gate to his front garden had been mysteriously left open. He is surprised to see a strange man with a child wander up his path. He's clearly up to no good and ducks down when a car drives past. Turns out he's hatched a plan to steal eggs from Ian's pair of beloved chickens called French and Saunders. But the man is about to get a surprise. Upset at having their hen night disturbed, the chickens get in a bit of a flap and fight back. The child is scared and runs off. And the hen-pecked poacher himself finally chickens out. Ian is left wondering what sort of adult would set that sort of example to a child. Clearly, he was a bit of a bad egg, but thankfully, he has never come back. No eggs disappeared, and those hen-pecked birds, French and Saunders, had had a clucky escape. Sorry. Earlier on, we saw the attempted armed robbery at a family-run jewellery shop in St Neots, Cambridge. The owner's son, Jack, tries to lock the man in, braving the threat from a massive knife blade. But the robber smashes his way out and Jack decides to chase after him.
All fear that was in me had gone, and that turned into adrenaline, and I was determined to get him. And the thought of my sister being here, or my dad or my mum being here, that's what was going through my mind. I don't know what we would have done if I'd caught him, but I just didn't want to let him get away.
The man eventually manages to disappear among houses on an estate. So Jack returns to the jewellery shop where his worried sister Connie has been waiting for him.
My mind was racing as to what happened to my brother, but luckily he was safe, and that it wasn't until about 10 minutes later that he came back, and I realised that.
They let their father know what's happened.
I got a phone call which, I mean, rocked my world really. And when I found out a knife was involved in the robbery, you know, I don't have my children working in the family business in a shop to risk their lives.
Jack's family have mixed feelings about what he did, putting himself in such a dangerous situation.
Business is business, that goods can be replaced, your brother can't.
He's behaved in a way that I'd hope any honourable citizen would behave. But then of course you think about him being harmed, or goodness knows even fatally harmed. I'm
very, very, very proud of him, but also I've told him never to ever do that again if he was ever in that position.
But that's not the end of things. It turns out that when Jack had the man trapped in his shop, he'd obviously got him badly rattled, enough to panic the man into making a big mistake.
When he was frantically hitting the door with the hammer, he then went for his knife and he dropped the hammer.
The police arrive and take the hammer to be examined by a forensic team.
The DNA was recovered from the hammer.
The police successfully match the DNA evidence to a man they have on their database of known criminals.
The police told me on the day they'd catch the person. If I'm being honest, I was sceptical, but true to their word, they caught him.
The armed robber is 23-year-old Leon Kane. In court, he is sentenced to 4 years in prison. The watch he stole has never been found, but the insurance paid out to cover the loss.
Got the watch, but that's not all he got. He got a prison sentence as well.
There are absolutely no winners in this situation. You know, he's in jail. I don't think he's been to jail before, so it's not going to be a great experience for him. But hopefully, he'll come out of jail and he won't want to undertake anything like this again.
In the immediate aftermath of the robbery, Paul had considered shutting the shop for good.
We were seriously thinking about that. I mean, obviously, it was still very raw, but the local community were amazing. Honestly, I cannot tell you, they came in their dozens. I mean, over the next couple of months, probably a couple of hundred people came in and asked us please not to close, and it made a massive difference to our decision.
So the shop stayed open, and the family are back to happier times and a happier type of customer.
Jack was a bit of a have-a-go hero, but if he had been seriously hurt, it might be a different story altogether. Now, it's unlikely we'll ever find ourselves in a situation like that. What should we do if we ever did?
Property can be replaced, you can't.
The best evidence from you that we can have is you being a good witness. So we need you to keep an eye on the detail whilst the crime is happening, but don't put yourself in danger's way.
Make sure that you have adequate insurance cover, and make sure also that you invest in good quality security systems such as a portable panic alarm, CCTV, and make sure they're all in good working order.
News of another armed robbery now, but of a very different sort and with a very surprising outcome, where some fast-thinking cashiers give the thief what he asks for, but a little bit more than what he wants. Liverpool, and it's approaching midday in this branch of a high street bank. All is quiet. Staff are preparing for the lunchtime rush, so they are not expecting what happens next. The peace is shattered when a hooded figure bursts in brandishing a firearm. He orders the tellers to hand over all the cash. He informs them that he's just got out after 5 years in prison and they shouldn't try anything stupid. He eventually leaves with notes worth about £2,000. But all is not as it seems. This is no hardened ex-con. Hiding under the hood of that anorak is a 15-year-old boy, and the gun he's waving is a fake. What he doesn't know is that the canny bank staff have answered the fake with a fake. They've put a dummy note bundle into the bag, and it's designed to detonate and spray dye over the cash when it leaves the building. He thinks he's got away from the bank security, from the police. But he hasn't reckoned with every teenager's ultimate deterrent, his mother. Because later on, his mum finds the dye-stained cash and fake firearm in his bedroom, and she turns her son in. The judge sentences the teenager to serve 40 months in a young offenders institution to deter him from a life of crime in the future. Earlier, we saw the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds using covert cameras to trap a gamekeeper. He was illegally killing goshawks, one of Britain's protected birds of prey. He did it by adapting and abusing a crow trap, a type of cage normally used legally to help stop crows from attacking nesting birds. But this is not an isolated case. It's not just goshawks that are targeted. It's buzzards too. Sometimes buzzards get accidentally caught in traps because they're attracted by the same bait as crows. If a gamekeeper finds them in his trap, the law says they must be set free.
They're a lovely bird. People like to see them. You know, on a summer's day, the call of a buzzard circling overhead is one of nature's great sights. But sadly, in certain areas, they are being killed because they're coming into conflict with particularly around about rearing time when the pheasant poults are put out. You know, they're putting a massive amount of natural food out there.
The buzzard's natural prey includes pheasants, which makes them unpopular with some gamekeepers who want to protect their stock. They see buzzards as a threat and a target, which is why the RSPB had mounted a special operation. Alan is at home when his phone rings.
A member of the public had contacted the RSPB to report a couple of buzzards in a cage trap.
Alan and a colleague find the cage trap in woods near Penrith in Cumbria.
We found it fairly quickly and a couple of buzzards in the trap. We immediately set up a camera on it to monitor what was going to happen.
The cage is legally baited and seems set correctly to catch crows, but inside it are 2 buzzards.
The buzzards could have been an incidental bycatch, and the chap isn't actually committing any offences at that point, as long as the birds are then released when he finds them.
Just as the investigators are leaving, a man approaches them. He's a local gamekeeper. He asks them what they're doing here.
We sort of played a bit daft and said we couldn't understand why anybody would be keeping buzzards in an aviary in the middle of woodland. And he was very obliging. He explained to us that it wasn't actually an aviary, it was a crow cage trap that was meant to catch crows, not catch buzzards. He gave us assurances that the birds would be released unharmed, and with no reason to disbelieve him. You know, the camera's already in and running, so we had to leave the camera there.
They returned several hours later to retrieve their kit.
We got back to the trap was empty, and we thought, good, he's been true to his word and he's let the birds go. It was only then when we went to the camera and checked the footage on the camera that we realised what had actually happened.
Just 3 minutes after they'd met the man, he turns up again with a bucket. He then picks up a fence post and enters the cage. It's too disturbing to show what happens next. He coldly kills the buzzards with the fence post.
Those birds are quite difficult to handle birds, you know, they've got very sharp talons, and yet the efficiency with which he dispatches those birds is quite alarming.
The RSPB alert the police, who arrest the gamekeeper. He admits the crime, but sadly, Alan is right. This gamekeeper has in fact killed many more buzzards. They find out where he has hidden all the dead bodies.
Show us where it is again. In here. Right, okay, go on.
Under here or under those branches, I would think.
Made a search around where the trap was and recovered a further 10 dead buzzards around that, probably within 10-15 metres of the trap.
It's a start. It's only one area, but here at least the buzzards will not be killed by this man anymore. He pleads guilty in court and is sentenced to 70 days in prison, which is suspended for a year. The RSPB hope that all this will act as a deterrent to stop other gamekeepers from breaking the law.
It was a good conviction. Everybody loves wildlife. Everybody wants to see birds, wants to see animals. The animals that should be here, wild in our countryside, should be there.
The RSPB is planning to set a lot more cameras around the country in the battle to save birds of prey.
I think it's a battle we will ultimately win. It's important that we win it. If we lose this battle, we're losing wildlife for future generations, and that's not something we can allow to happen.
That's it for today. Join us next time when the police and the public catch more criminals red-handed.
This morning's Sign Zone on the way next, starting with animals, saints and sinners, and the story of how Lucy the support dog has boosted the confidence of a shy teenager.